Okay, I think we can get started. What are all yours?
Okay, great. So thank you everybody for joining us. We're very excited to be able to host this webinar talking about what obviously in our opinions is something that is incredibly exciting and a very interesting product for us to be working on and problems that we're trying to solve. So a quick bit of background on our company. So the company is called Nimble Work. It's a 23-year-old software company. Both Ashwin and I are part of Agwise and Chiron, which are both divisions of Nimble Work, where Chiron focuses on AI conversational platforms. And at Agwise, we focus specifically on the agriculture sector, working on both precision farming and more recently, we started in 2024 looking at conversational digital assistants for the agriculture industry as a whole. So, Likita, can you go to the next slide? So the agenda for the webinar today is as we're doing, well, as you can see, we're doing a little bit of the introductions. We'll talk about the evolution of chatbots and look at where the industry is going in the future. We will look at some very practical use cases of the next generation of agriculture chatbots. We'll also talk about how to hyper personalize the user experiences and uh, the information and the actions that users can take using AI and ML. We'll go through a quick demo and then open this up for Q&A. Some basic housekeeping is that our session will be recorded. It'll be available on our YouTube, our LinkedIn, and any questions you would like to ask, please use the Q&A box. We will be getting to questions towards the end, but if at any time you do feel like you would like to ask a question, please go ahead and do that. We will get to it at the end.
Right. So let me start with a bit of introductions. Varun and I have known each other for now, what, 7 years,
Yes.
and we are friends offline, and we also happen to be colleagues, good colleagues as well. Varun focuses mostly on agri, that is the agri space. The domain expertise comes from him. And he's successfully been running the entire division, dealing with go-to-market strategies for precision agriculture and R&D as well. So what's very unique about Agwise is the fact that they do agriculture, sure, they do precision agriculture, that's amazing, but they back it down with a lot of R&D where they publish in papers, some soon to be published, and they're also working with a large number of agricultural colleges in and around India and in the US as well, and they're bringing that to the market. A bit about me, I run Chiron. Chiron essentially started off as a conversational digital transformation platform. The core idea behind the platform is that we're trying to solve conversational AI use cases for large enterprises. But then the fact that we are trying to get this done in agriculture is very, very powerful, because we quickly realized that a large number of farmers use a lot of products and they need that advice in order to make it work. And we get the advice directly to them on the channels that they exist on, namely WhatsApp, Nimble, and other channels, Line in Philippines for that matter. So the core idea is that we're combining the technologies of conversational AI, hyper-personalization, and networks with strong domain experience in agriculture and putting the two together and hopefully doing service to farmers and help them in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, Nimblework has been in the business for 23 years. We have a lot of marquee clients. Within the agri space, we work with developmental agencies, research institutions, and agri businesses to basically improve the way that they engage with their farmers. And what we will be talking about today is other entities within the supply chain. Likita, you can go to the next slide. All right, so let's begin. I would like to just start by talking about why chatbots for the agriculture space. Now, within the developing world, where, especially here in India, where we have a lot of smallholder farmers whose exposure to advanced technologies is quite limited, uh, the user experience of having to download a mobile app and keep opening up that mobile app to get whatever they want done or whatever advices they need is the biggest barrier for adoption of any digital program, in the sense that imagine asking you to download an app to come and participate in this webinar. I don't
Right.
think
That's
anybody would
true.
do that, right? So, and especially in today's world where there are so many apps and every app has a specific use case, it can become very overwhelming. And from our personal experiences, when we started off doing our precision farming research going back to 2020, was that even within our own research fields, the farmers that we worked with, our extension agents, and the agronomists, we found that even though all of the advisories and all of the information that we needed to collect on crop growth was could be done using the mobile app that supported our precision farming system, farmers and the extension team did not use it. I mean, in the sense that it was when you look at the total amount of use cases, people would only use our app for maybe 10-20% of them. And even in some cases, farmers have deleted our apps. They've put them in their on the last page of their phones. They wouldn't look at the notifications. And what ended up happening was our agronomists created a WhatsApp group to basically tell them what needed to be done for each experimental treatment on a weekly basis, and the data that we needed to collect, which was quite extensive. I mean, we were collecting information on the height of the plant, the girth of the stem, number of leaves. Then when it came to flowering, the number of flowers, and then finally during the fruiting stage, the number of fruits, the size of the fruits. So there was a lot of data that we needed to collect as well. And all of that ended up being done on WhatsApp. Now, it wasn't a very labor efficient way of doing things because it was not automated at all, as opposed to on our mobile app where everything was templated and automated. Our agronomists had to write every single message and send it to them. And actually, within these WhatsApp groups, we also found another problem where there was a lot of unnecessary information being shared, like
A lot of
good morning
crosstalk.
messages. Yeah, a lot of good morning messages, some random forwards, memes, right? Stuff that wasn't very relevant to the activity that we were trying to uh, foster within that group. But it worked better than our app. So earlier this year was when we partnered with Chiron and started to automate a lot of these tasks that needed to be done, right? And we did it on WhatsApp, and the response was exponentially better. I mean,
Mind blowing. I mean, the
yeah,
kind of adoption you're seeing is like amazing.
exactly. I mean, and from our perspective, it was really the fact that it was a user experience that they were already familiar with. They didn't have to open another app. They were anyway opening WhatsApp multiple times a day. So the messages that we wanted to send were being received and read. And with a little bit of training and some prodding, we were able to automatically collect all of the data that we needed to do. So this year we've had a pretty good run within the conversational agriculture space, onboarding a lot of exciting projects and a lot of exciting clients. The reality is that most organizations will have very unique and customized versions of these chatbots. So there is a process of understanding what the use cases are, how to tailor what we have already built and fit it into the operational models of these organizations. But both with Ashwin's team and my team, who have a lot of experience within the agri domain and also the AI space. We feel at least we've been doing a really great job, and that's also uh, been proven by the fact that initially when we went into this, we felt that farmers would require a lot of hand holding to be able to
Yeah.
onboard themselves onto our app and start to use it. Within our East West Seed project, which was our first client within the space, uh, for our initial launch, both the East West Seeds team and our team, we went to the field, we hosted meetings, and trained farmers on how to use the bot. But very quickly, we found that that was not a very scalable approach, and then we started to see a lot of in network effects kick in, where in the beginning we started to see a few farmers that we hadn't personally reached out to start to interact with our chatbot, and then it's only scaled up from there. So yeah, we were very surprised and very happy to be proven wrong with our initial assumption that farmers, at least here in India, would need a lot of handholding to be able to interact with our bots. So I'll hand it over to Ashwin now, because he's been in the AI conversational space for many years now, to talk about what the evolution is and where we are going.
Yeah, thanks, Varun. So one thing that we did notice when we were dealing with farmers is that during their downtimes and a large amount of when they want recreational activities, they consume a lot of information on WhatsApp. So when we are able to translate complex UX elements within larger apps into social channels, they take to fish like water. So they're very fast in adapting to social channels. And if you're able to deliver advice or deliver abilities to buy things on WhatsApp, they're very fast. They pick it up very rapidly. So hence the concept that it's easy to market a QR code than it is to market an app, because it fundamentally reduces the friction of farmers having to install it. So in that context, what we did is that if you take any kind of app in the agri space, or for that matter in the digital transformation space, you can split the use cases into four increasing levels of complexity, right? And within that you throw in LLMs and you throw in conversational AI, and it will help you attain or achieve these use cases. The easiest one of them is of course question and answers. That is, you've got a lot of you have a huge repository which is in a specific language, and you want the users questions to be answered rapidly. So that's what we call information retrieval. So that is the easiest and probably the most common use of chatbots out there. And that's where you start with. I mean, that's where you
Yeah.
would start your
And
entire process with.
large language models are incredibly powerful at doing this. And
Yeah.
within the agriculture context, we all know that there's an information gap between what's happening in the research institutes and also with the leading agri companies and getting that information to farmers. That
Yeah.
being said, our experience has been that information retrieval is not a big problem for farmers. I mean, farmers in general have access to information. Now, whether it's the most up to date or the most cutting edge information is a different question. But they are bombarded with different
Sources
with
of information.
sources of information, exactly, whether it be from their neighbor, the government's extension programs, their local input shop. There's a lot of information that's easily accessible to them. But that being said, getting into the conversational agri space, we definitely started there, but we have evolved it, since then. Um,
Yeah, and another cool thing is that because you have large language models, you have the ability to access information across multiple languages, right? And that too in different dialects. So that has been a very powerful and transformational use case for us. And we will talk about more pertinent, and I think I want to touch about pertinence as well, and we'll talk about it as we move on to the other use cases. So the next level of complexity is what we call action flows, where you want to essentially be able to trigger an operation, like say turning on a pump, or it could be making a payment for a specific pesticide, or it could be saying that, hey, I've planted my crop on this date. So how should I track the progress and see if there are any relevant triggers or alerts that I can get from the agri space for specific diseases that I need to take care of for a specific crop. So all these types of use cases will come under action flows, where you're combining the ability to understand the user and then trigger an action by connecting it to various tech APIs that are available, right?
yeah,
And I
to
think Varun, you can talk about pertinence here,
yeah,
specifically with yeah.
Yeah, to add on to that, I mean, what we found, and if any of you are looking at implementing a conversational platform to interact with farmers, we found that long-term adoption of technologies like this only can only be driven if the farmer gets some tangible benefit from it, right? And if it's just information, yes, it's fun to play around for a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and even during the season, they will come to our bot to ask questions when they have certain problems. But when you are integrating this into their actual process of farming is when we start to see a lot more engagement, and the benefit to the farmer increases quite significantly.
And the next level of complexity after that is proactive agents. So level one and level two, we've been mostly reacting to situations, reacting to questions, or reacting to requests for certain actions. In proactive agents, the system or the chatbots are able to keep a track of their engagement with the user and then proactively intervene. So a good point that Varun and I were also discussing about was when there is a sudden disease outbreak, it would make sense to essentially intimate all the farmers within that area, saying that there is a specific crop disease outbreak. So you may want to take precautionary measures. So this kind of case scenario where the bots are themselves taking proactive actions by realizing having sensory information from the world outside are called proactive agents. Varun?
Yeah, this is where the real intelligence comes in, right? Because both information retrieval and operations integrations can be done through pretty, well, quote unquote, simplistic apps or applications. But where the AI and machine learning really comes into play is when you want to be proactive, and that has actually allowed us to even further increase the value of what we offer to the organizations that we work with, primarily because you're able to anticipate what the farmers are looking for at that specific time. And that could be from interactions that an individual farmer is having with the bot, but also crowdsourcing it from what farmers around them are reporting, are engaging with the bot for.
Right. And level four, community building is something that is the most advanced of all these four groups. So far in level 1, 2, and 3, you're talking about one community, that is the farmer community or the farming community. But there is a large ecosystem out there as far as agriculture is concerned. It is pesticide companies, it could input companies, it could be the mandis or the places, marketplaces where these are sold. It could be the final consumer who finally takes, who gets the food onto his plate. So there's a huge ecosystem out there. So community building is about essentially having network, having these agents or flows across multiple communities, and then sharing information across these different agents, right? Sharing information. So today we will be focusing a lot on the level 4, because we see a huge impact of this in agriculture, both within India and abroad. And I see a lot of interest coming up. Uh, and I think Varun and I are fairly excited to talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, so when it comes to community building, Likita, you can actually go to the next slide. One of the very exciting use cases for us is helping agribusinesses connect with not only the farmers but also their supply chain in general. Now, if you are within that space or working for an agribusiness, then you're probably very familiar with this. But if you aren't, I'll just take a few seconds to explain what that means. So essentially, you have the OEM of these products, right? Either your seed companies or your agrochem companies, which actually manufacture the key input product. But between them and the farmer, there is the distribution network, which has your dealers, sub dealers, and finally the retailers, which are the ones that actually have the connect with the farmers. And oftentimes, there's not a lot of visibility for these agri organizations past what they sell to their primary dealers. Now, they do have field teams which support and facilitate the movement of goods from the organization's manufacturing plants all the way to the retailers. But it's a very heavily manual and intensive process where the reporting, the visibility, and it's really not real time, right? Where let's say sales reports or field visit reports are often done on paper, and that ends up, sometimes getting lost, and even if it does make its way back to the management, it takes a decent amount of time. And then
And
finally, you have the
I
farmers. Yeah,
think,
sorry.
and as you, I think one thing we would want to highlight is the fact that there's a lot of churn in the manpower here as well. So making sure that the incoming manpower is able to stick to the standards that have been established also becomes a problem, especially in the context of India and all the emerging agri economies, at least, right? So I think you guys have had the problem with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely the case. I mean, if you look at the LinkedIn profiles of let's say, a s an agriculture sales manager, I mean, he'll be having the same role from one or two or three organizations within a relatively short amount of time. That being said, I don't want to generalize that, but it is, I would say, the majority of people within the space. And I mean, we face the same within the IT industry as well. I mean, uh,
Yeah.
you know, people jumping from company to company happens quite a lot. Now, if you look at what the use cases are for each one of these players, it's quite different from each other in the sense that the field teams have the responsibility of going and visiting farmers. The distribution network has the responsibility of making sure that the product moves from the factory all the way to the retailer. And finally, the farmers themselves, they need to know what products to use and when to use it. So if you're looking at this ecosystem, these are three completely different chatbots, right? If you're looking at if you're looking at addressing this conversationally, you would have to build a specific chatbot for farmers, a specific chatbot for your distributors and your retailers, and a separate chatbot for the field teams. But all of that, but bringing all of them together is really where the agri organization starts to see value. So what we are working on today, and actually rolling this out in some of our projects as we speak, is really having these discrete chatbots with individual use cases being able to talk to each other. So here's one example of what an ecosystem of chatbots could look like. We can go to the next slide, Likita. Yeah.
Right. So we have ONDC here because ONDC is very relevant in our the Indian context, at least. ONDC, for those who are not aware, is essentially an open network for digital commerce. It is a set of protocols that the government of India has developed, by which you are able to connect multiple tech platforms together. So it is essentially a set of protocols. They call themselves also a network of networks, where multiple e-commerce networks, your logistics networks, all of these are able to talk to each other to achieve an end goal of commerce. And Chiron and Agwise are working together to get onto ONDC as well, and probably piloting it soon enough. And if you look at the broader ecosystem, we can broadly group them under financial institutions. In the agri context, they're either giving you loans, short-term loans, or they're giving you operational loans to in order to expedite the process of either growing crops or buying raw materials or inputs, right? You have fintech platforms which are essentially doing the small loans, which help with short-term lending and so on and so forth. Then you have marketplaces not only for the farm to table set of startups that are seeing today, but also place scenarios where you want to sell in bulk, right? So those are all marketplaces, mandis, and all these would be point to point marketplaces. You have agri organizations like FPOs that are essentially bringing farmers together as companies and trying to make sure that through collective means they're able to generate scale and therefore economies from there. And tying all these together, because we're talking about commodities in essence, you have logistics as well. So logistics is a big issue, right? So, and all these, at the center of this is the producer or the grower, that is the farmer. And in our case, it is fairly fragmented as well. You have a large group of fragments there. So how do you connect these 5 or 6 different players together and share information between the bots that are servicing them is the key to the use case that we are talking about, right? And so a good example of what Varun and their team are doing right now is to be able to say, hey, let me say that a farmer is growing in a specific season, and give him a package of practice that helps him grow for that season, and then in that process also advise him on what inputs to use. And whenever he needs those specific inputs, he is able to pull in various input producing input organizations and push specific products which are useful for the farmer for that specific crop. At the end of it, once the farmer has been able to achieve and produce the crop, the idea of saying, hey, can I now take this produce that I have, sell it on a platform, a marketplace, and push the produce towards a warehouse for further distribution? That is your end consumer, farm to table. You want to package these goods and then sell them on ONDC. So we are trying to bring all these multiple platforms together by having uh, digital assistants for each of these different personas, right? And yeah, and Varun,
Yeah.
you would want to talk about a bit more about this as well?
Yeah. So the use case that I had talked about was one that was very focused towards benefiting one specific agri organization, right? But what Ashwin is talking about here is bringing the agriculture ecosystem as a whole together, and
Right.
using chat and conversational platforms as the as the one way that and the most easily accessible way for farmers. Now, and I do have to talk a little bit about ONDC. I mean, connecting to an agri ecosystem as a whole is very tough for a quote unquote small company like us. So having, uh, the government of India push something like ONDC into the market right now, and having ONDC be so applicable to the agriculture industry makes it a no-brainer for us to essentially work as partners with ONDC to bring that open network and make it accessible to the farmers that we work with.
Right. And in short, what we're achieving through this is massive accessibility in the language of choice that the end users use, and then streamlining the network as a whole by leveraging existing platforms. So I think the stuff that we have got on our on the slide is not groundbreaking in terms of technology itself, because a lot of it already exists, but we are leveraging it better by infusing it with the fact that we're using social media channels like WhatsApp, and we are using large language models where needed, so that the system is able to accelerate access. So I think that's a bit.
And to add on to that, I mean, the platform of ONDC and the accessibility to the ecosystem as a whole only makes sense for a farmer if you put it into their context, right? So
Yeah.
having the data models that we have, for your crop seasons, pest diseases, what inputs are required to address what problems and be applied at specific growth stages of the crop really makes connecting to the ecosystem way more relevant for the farmer.
Right.
Likita, can you go? Yeah. Perfect. So, what we'll talk about right now is how the architecture essentially that is required to make the information very contextual to the farmer. Uh,
Right.
Nashwan, you
You're
can
right.
take.
Yeah. So in our previous slide, when we were talking about that star diagram in which we had all the players in the system, and they were talking to each other, one important dimension that was missing was time, right? Because growing crops is a, it's not a point in time but a sequence of events that happens, and these interactions are over a period of time. Not only are they intra season, but they're across seasons, because the crop that you're growing in this season very much so is dependent on what you grew the previous season, right? And what were the economic ramifications of what you grew earlier. So it is very important in the agriculture context that the connection with the farmer is made over a period of time, so that as the seasons grow, as the seasons go past, the relationship becomes stronger, because a lot of this, especially in India and in growing economies, is about trust. No matter how many technologies that we may bring in, without trust, the whole thing just falls apart. So the key thing that we are trying to do with Chiron and Agwise is to build a system of record for the farmer, not overtly so, but in a manner in which we understand the interactions that are happening, what are the kind of problems that they're facing, and this information in turn becomes very valuable to other network players who are getting connected through our technology, right? So Agwise itself is got a huge repository of its data models and different package of practices that it has, and they offer this as APIs. Chiron on top of it, it sits on top of this database or data model and works with the APIs, and essentially converts something which is very tabular into something that a farmer would understand, say in Marathi or in Hindi or in Telugu, right? So Chiron essentially acts as an intelligent interpreter, if you may, and that gets deployed onto social media channels, right? Not only is it an intelligent interpreter, but it also takes a, it's a consumer of action requests. So if the farmer says, hey, I want to buy this particular seeds, or hey, I want to buy this particular fertilizer, Chiron is able to take these requests and and then pass them to the Agwise APIs, which in turn will go to the relevant stakeholders, right? So once these digital assistants have been deployed on these channels, the channel being WhatsApp in this case, then automatically, as we talked earlier, there's a massive surge in the number of interactions that a farmer has over a period of time. So unlike e-commerce applications where you just buy once, here you're guiding the farmer over usage of or growing a specific kind of crop and intervening over a period of time in the season, right? So you come across what kind of what kind of diseases does he see in that time, what is the kind of finance that he requires, what is the kind of insurance he requires. So all these are informations and questions that the farmer usually asks you, right? And the app is able to handle that. All that is aggregated, so not only is it aggregated for that single farmer but across multiple farmers, and from there we develop this history of engagement, which becomes the basis for other players in the ecosystem, and helps them service these farmers better. So that's a bit of the mechanism in which we are able to tailor interactions for farmers, because we know what their history is, and therefore we are able to give more personalized recommendations and take the vast amounts of information that are available. And as Varun was alluding to earlier, there's no dearth of information, a lot of information available, but interpreting that information in the context that the farmer needs is the critical piece of this entire architecture, and that's what we're trying to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you would like to learn more about how we do this, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to schedule a call, but within the context of a quick 1 hour webinar, we can't get too detailed.
Into
So we try
details.
to stay a little high level. Yes, Girish. So actually, within the bot that we showed you right now, it was specifically for FPOs in Jharkhand, Bihar, and UP, which primarily are Hindi-speaking states. The other projects that we are working in, we have it in Tamil, in Kannada, in Marathi, and now in Assamese as well. So depending on the state that you're working in, depending on what language you would like to offer the solution in, we do that customization for you. So thank you for that question. Okay, that's really great. I mean, looks.
Yeah, I
I mean,
actually,
I do have see that there are some questions in chat. Please, can I access the document for this webinar? Do you have any future plans in Nigeria? So in Nigeria, we actually don't have a project ongoing, but we are rolling out with an agrochem company in Kenya within the very short future. Yes, we are. Our solution is available for Africa. And if you have any projects that you'd like to work with us on, or any use cases, we would love to explore that.
incidentally, Varun, we got a farm to table opportunity just a few days ago from Nigeria. I think very soon we'll see some movement there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, it's beautiful to see AI being used for a positive impact in agriculture. So, in brief, tell me how your solution could be helpful for a B2B marketplace for fresh produce. Um, yeah, so just to clarify, a B2B marketplace for fresh produce is where you have farmers that have aggregated the produce at some level, right? And then that aggregation point is then marketing that not directly to the end consumers, but probably to grocery store chains or restaurants or hotels and things like that, right? If that is the case, then yeah, I mean the the process of placing an order and facilitating the shipping and the tracking can all be done on WhatsApp or on chat. So yeah, I mean, there definitely are some use cases that we can explore with regard to a B2B marketplace. Absolutely. And
So right,
yeah.
so right now, ONDC is coming up, has already opened up the third-party logistics apps. So what's in within WhatsApp, you can directly integrate with ONDC and then take care of logistics as well. So since you're already dealing with FPOs, which are essentially businesses by themselves, the other end would be similar such use cases where you have buyers on the other end, and the logistics is facilitated either via ONDC or any other third-party logistics vendor.
Yes, so the Chiron team is actually doing a lot of work in this specific space, and unfortunately, I'm not able to see your name here. But
Yeah,
please feel free to reach out to us after the webinar, and we'll connect and yeah, more conversations of this. Yeah, yes, please drop an email to us. Uh, Likita, can you go to the next slide? Our contact information is there. Yeah.
uh,
So you can email e either Ashwin or I. We will get back to you. Girish has another great question. Any future plans to introduce voice-based search in WhatsApp? So yes, actually, right now with the newest version of the LLMs being very voice-based, it definitely is part of our roadmap and our pipeline. We will be rolling that out within the next 2 months. The idea is that, yeah, I mean, we were just waiting for the technology to catch up. The need is definitely there within the, the agri space because some farmers are non-literate, so reading and responding is a challenge. We have had that brought to us by almost all of the organizations that we work with, and yes, this definitely is a possibility with our system today.
and I'm just pushing the ball along a bit, but there are some restrictions. It's not. Um, so the biggest problem that we face in India is essentially dialects. That even Kannada or Telugu is spoken, or for that matter, Tamil is spoken very differently in different regions of the state. So the biggest problem for large language models within India, essentially, when it comes to voice-based systems, is to be able to have enough data that capture these variations across regions within a given state for a specific language. So while we see it happening for languages like Hindi and Telugu, and in more urban areas, getting voice-based support specifically with dialect is something that would be a problem that will be solved probably in 3 years or 4 years time. Not something that the technology can do right now. I'm just being honest there.
Well, that being said, I mean, the fact that there are a lot of homegrown, quote unquote,
AI, AI solutions. Yeah.
Indian LLMs that are becoming pretty popular. Those one of the really cool features of Chiron is that you're not stuck to just ChatGPT. You have the option to connect with multiple large language models, and yeah, we are integrated with some of the players that are building India-focused large language models. That being said, the problem of dialects hasn't been solved in a very reliable way yet, but there is a lot of work and advancement within that space. Okay, I think we're just about at time. I would like to thank everybody once again for joining us. We really appreciate uh, your time and the opportunity to share what we've been working on. Both Ashwin and I are extremely excited to be within this space. There's a lot happening, a lot of problems to solve. And the opportunity within the agriculture sector within India and globally is huge. We do need partners and people to collaborate with to really make an impact. Um, so yes, I mean, if anybody here sees an opportunity to work with us or to integrate conversational based user experience within their projects or any products that they're working with, we will be very happy to continue the conversation. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye. Good night.